Have you ever noticed how some men seem to draw others in without even trying? How they can walk into a room, say very little, and yet command attention effortlessly? That isn't luck. That is presence. And in Stoic philosophy, presence is cultivated not chased. Chapter 1. The man who doesn't chase attention. A Stoic foundation of attraction there. As a fundamental truth that many men overlook. You don't earn respect by seeking it. You don't gain attention by begging for it. True high-value men, those who are deeply attractive and respected by women, are not the loudest or most insistent. They are the calmest, the most grounded, the least desperate. Let's begin with the first defining trait of a high-value man from a Stoic perspective. He does not crave her attention. Imagine two men. One sends constant messages, checking in, asking when he'll see her again, anxiously trying to keep the connection alive. The other is living fully focusing on his path, his values, his mission. He reaches out with purpose, not out of panic. Who do you think she finds more compelling? Stoicism teaches that tranquility and self-sufficiency are virtues. A man who lives by these values does not seek validation through constant attention. Instead, he understands his own worth and lets his energy speak for itself. He does not flutter with words. His absence, his composure, his focus, these become his message. In fact, women are often more drawn to men who show emotional control and quiet confidence than to those who constantly pursue them. Because confidence without neediness signals stability. And stability is magnetic. Think back to the story of Odysseus and Penelope. While countless suitors tried to win her heart with flattery and persistence, it was Odysseus, distant, tested by trials, and unwavering in his purpose, who ultimately claimed her love. Not by begging, but by enduring. That's the Stoic ideal. Attraction rooted in dignity and self-respect, not in chasing or clinging. A man of high value does not internalize rejection. He doesn't fall apart when things don't go his way. He understands that compatibility is mutual. If a connection fails, it does not mean he has failed. It simply means the alignment was not there. This inner balance, this refusal to be swayed by a woman's availability or validation, is not manipulation. It is integrity. A high-value man remains centered. He doesn't collapse when he is ignored, nor does he inflate when he is praised. He stays consistent because his peace does not depend on her attention. It never did. And ironically, it is this emotional independence that makes him unforgettable. Because while others compete for her focus, he offers her a rare experience, being in the presence of a man who doesn't need her to feel whole. He becomes the exception, the one who stands apart. And when a woman encounters that kind of man, she doesn't feel chased, she feels curious. She wonders why he doesn't seek her the way others do. She senses depth, strength, mystery, and in that silence, attraction grows. First, fall, the emotional truth. Here's the hard truth most men avoid. When you act from need, you lose power. When you chase validation, you shrink your presence. You become reactive, anxious, forgettable. You become one of many. And women can feel it. But when you stop seeking their attention and start cultivating your value from within, everything shifts. You stop performing. You stop over-explaining. You stop fearing her silence. And when you do that, when you stop needing her to see you, you become someone she cannot ignore. Chapter 2. He elevates her genuinely. The power of sincere praise there. As a type of man who makes a woman feel seen, not because he bombards her with compliments, but because he recognizes who she truly is. Not just how she looks, but what she carries inside. Her fire, her character, her quiet strength. And that man doesn't fake admiration. He delivers it with clarity and truth. This brings us to the second defining trait of a high-value man. He elevates her genuinely. In Stoic philosophy, the ability to recognize virtue in others is itself a virtue. Seneca once said, "It is noble to honor the excellence we see in others, for it strengthens not only them, but us as well." A man of value understands this. He sees praise not as flattery, but as a form of justice. This means he doesn't rely on empty lines or exaggerated compliments. He pays attention. He watches how she handles pressure, how she thinks, how she treats others. And when he speaks, it's with precision. Not, "You're so pretty," but "I admire the calm you held in that chaotic moment." Not, "You're amazing," but "Your passion for what you love is rare." These are words that matter. They show that he's listening not just to her words, but to her essence. Women are not strangers to attention. Many are used to being complimented for superficial traits. But when a man recognizes her inner world, her resilience, her insight, her effort, it hits differently. It lands deeper. Because it says, "I see more than your surface. I see your substance." And more importantly, he doesn't give praise to get something. He gives it because it's true, because it reflects what he genuinely respects. The Stoic view of connection. The Stoic man is not emotionally numb. On the contrary, he is emotionally intelligent. He knows that meaningful connection is built not through seduction, but through sincere interaction. He doesn't manipulate. He doesn't perform. He connects with truth. This means when he lifts a woman up with his words, it's not about boosting her ego. It's about honoring her virtues. He doesn't use words to impress, but to mirror back to her the greatness she may have forgotten in herself. And when he does this, something powerful happens. She begins to feel safe, understood, valued not for her body, but for her mind, for her soul. And that safety creates desire, not through pressure, but through resonance. First fall. What most men get wrong. Here's what most men miss. Compliments without substance are noise. They are everywhere. They mean nothing. But genuine affirmation? That's rare. That's valuable. That stays. When you praise everything, you praise nothing. When you compliment what she shows to everyone, you miss what she hides from most. And it's in that hidden space, those unspoken parts of her, that the Stoic man finds something real to admire. The second rise, a relationship built on respect. A man of high value doesn't seek to seduce a woman. He seeks to respect her, to challenge her, to stand beside her, not beneath her or above her. His admiration is specific, thoughtful, and restrained out, and that changes the dynamic entirely. Because instead of trying to win her approval, he offers his own, carefully, intentionally, with standards, and that's what makes him unforgettable. When you elevate her truthfully, not for what you want from her, but for what you genuinely see in her, you create something few men ever do. A connection built on truth, not performance, not fantasy, but respect. Chapter 3. The calm confidence that cannot be ignored. True security in self. There's a kind of strength that doesn't need to be spoken. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't boast or seek applause. It simply walks into the room and changes the atmosphere. That strength is called quiet confidence, and it is the third defining trait of a high-value man. Imagine this moment. You're standing in a social setting, and you see a woman who captures your attention. Something in you wants to approach, but then the doubt creeps in. What if she rejects you? What if you look foolish? What if you say the wrong thing? Now imagine another version of you. Same situation, same woman, but this time you act. Not because you're sure she'll say yes, but because your action isn't tied to the outcome. You approach with calmness, grounded in the Stoic truth. You control the action, not the result. This is the heart of confidence, not arrogance, not charm, but composure, presence, a quiet certainty rooted in self-awareness and acceptance of what's beyond your control. The Stoics taught that virtue is sufficient for happiness. That means a man's worth does not fluctuate based on approval, success, or rejection. It comes from living in alignment with his values, from knowing who he is, regardless of how the world responds. A confident man doesn't need to dominate a room. He doesn't compete. He simply is. He doesn't rehearse lines or wear a mask. His calm, his tone, his gaze, they all communicate the same message. I am enough. First fall, the trap of external validation. This is where most men fall. They believe confidence is about being impressive, about always winning, about getting results. So they become obsessed with outcomes. How many matches? How many replies? How many yeses? And in doing so, they hand their power over to others. Confidence rises when they're accepted and collapses when they're rejected. But a Stoic man doesn't build his identity on shifting ground. His confidence is rooted in his choices, not her reactions. In his virtue, not her validation. If she's interested, great. If not, he remains whole. Why? Because he remembers, rejection is not failure. It is simply a reminder that not every connection is meant to be. And that's not personal. That's reality. The second rise. Confidence as inner stillness. True confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need to shout. It sits in silence. It listens more than it speaks. It moves slowly, intentionally. And this kind of presence, this deep, settled energy, is far more attractive than any clever pickup line or flashy move. Women notice it immediately. It makes them feel safe, seen. It signals that this man won't be thrown off by a moment of tension or discomfort, that he doesn't need to impress to feel worthy, that he knows how to stand still in a world of constant noise. And that stillness, that presence, that's what lingers. A Stoic man acts without fear because he's not attached to the outcome. He lives with intention, not calculation. He doesn't overthink, he observes. He doesn't overreact, he adjusts. That's the kind of confidence that doesn't waver, because it isn't built on how others see him. It's built on how he sees himself. Conclusion: the uncheckable man. A high-value man isn't fearless. He's simply unruled by fear. He feels it, understands it, and moves anyway. And that courage, that poise, is what sets him apart. He doesn't need to prove himself. He doesn't chase validation. He is guided by reason, centered in self-respect, and free from the need to be chosen. And that kind of man, that's the one who is remembered, admired, respected, not because he demands it, but because he embodies it. Chapter 4. Stop putting her on a pedestal, treating her as an equal, not as a queen, as a common mistake men make when they fall for someone. They begin to worship. They elevate her. They make her the center of their world. And slowly, often, without realizing, they shrink themselves. What began as admiration turns into submission. What was once mutual interest becomes imbalance. She becomes the prize. He becomes the pursuer. And with each pedestal he builds, he loses a part of himself. But here's the Stoic truth. No one deserves to be placed above you, not in love, not in life. Respect? Yes. Admiration? Of course. But idolization? That's a form of self-betrayal. Because when you put someone on a pedestal, you inevitably place yourself beneath them. First. Fall, the quiet erosion of dignity. When a man idolizes a woman, he stops seeing clearly. He begins to excuse behaviors he wouldn't tolerate from anyone else. He accepts crumbs. He overcompensates. He says yes when he should say no, all in the name of keeping her. But beneath that is fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. That fear drives him to seek her approval at all costs. He confuses devotion with dependence. He thinks putting her first makes him a better man, but in reality, it makes him invisible. The more he sacrifices his standards, his boundaries, his identity, the more she senses it. And women can feel it, the shift from confident interest to needy obsession. And nothing kills desire faster. A Stoic man knows. Love without self-respect is not love. It's desperation wearing a mask. The second rise, balance, is the foundation of respect. Real connection is built on equality, not on worship, not on submission. A high-value man treats a woman with respect, but he never places her above his principles. He is kind, but not passive. He is generous, but not self-erasing. He gives, but not from emptiness. She is not his queen. She is his partner. And if she forgets that, if she demands to be worshipped instead of met eye to eye, then he has the strength to walk away, not out of anger, not out of spite, but out of clarity. Because to a Stoic man, inner peace is more valuable than temporary affection. And no matter how beautiful she is, no matter how magnetic, if the price is his dignity, it's too expensive. When he looks at her, he sees her clearly. Strengths, flaws, depth, and all. He admires what is admirable, but he never forgets who he is. He never abandons his own worth in pursuit of hers. And ironically, that's what makes her respect him. When she sees that he is not blinded by beauty, not moved by games, not dependent on her validation, she leans in, not because he begged, but because he stayed centered. Conclusion: the man who cannot be diminished, the man who treats her as an equal, stands tall. He doesn't kneel before beauty. He doesn't chase approval. He walks beside her, not behind. His value doesn't rise when she chooses him, and it doesn't fall if she leaves. He is not defined by being loved. He is defined by how he loves with strength, with standards, with spine. And that kind of man, he doesn't need to be crowned. He is already complete. Chapter 5. He doesn't seek revenge. He masters detachment. Revenge is seductive. It whispers promises of justice, of balance, of making them feel what they made you feel. It tells you that if you strike back, you'll reclaim your power. That if you hurt them, you'll heal. But that's the lie, because in chasing revenge, you're still chained to them. Your actions are not your own, they're reactions. And every reaction is proof that they still control your emotional state. Stoic man knows power is not in retaliation, it's in release. That first fall, the poison in the chase. When someone hurts you, betrays your trust, rejects your love, disrespects your worth, the first instinct is to retaliate, to prove they were wrong, to show them what they lost, to make them feel the same pain you carried. But revenge doesn't heal. It extends the wound. You think you're winning, but you're bleeding in silence. You're still thinking about them, still planning your next move based on their shadow, still tied to their absence. You become consumed not by love, but by obsession. And obsession is a prison, one you built yourself. The Stoics taught, you are disturbed not by what happens, but by your perception of it. If you perceive loss as weakness, you will drown in it. But if you see it as transformation, you rise. To rise, you must first detach. The second rise. Detachment is power in its purest form. Detachment is not apathy. It's not coldness. It's the decision to reclaim your energy and place it where it serves you, not where it drains you. The high-value man doesn't plot revenge. He doesn't send bitter texts. He doesn't chase attention through indirect moves. He disappears with purpose. Because when a man walks away without resentment, without anger, and without a need to prove anything, he becomes unforgettable. She expects chaos. She expects tears. She expects begging, or rage, or games. But instead, she is met with silence, with calm, with progress. That silence echoes louder than any outburst. He detaches because he knows. Revenge is for those who lost control, but detachment is for those who've reclaimed it. Conclusion: the man she cannot touch, the man who doesn't seek revenge, becomes untouchable. He doesn't run behind anyone. He doesn't explain his worth. He doesn't crumble when dismissed. He rises quietly, relentlessly, without asking for applause. And one day, she looks back, expecting to find the man she left behind. But he's no longer there. Not because he vanished, but because he evolved. And that, more than any vengeance, is the final blow. Because she realizes the man who needed nothing from her was the one who had everything she now craves. Chapter 6. He doesn't reveal everything. He leaves space for mystery. The world today demands that we overshare, that we explain every emotion, that we justify every action, that we expose our thoughts, our wounds, our stories for validation, for acceptance, for connection. But a Stoic man knows, the more you reveal, the more they control. First fall, when openness becomes weakness. Many men believe that transparency equals strength, that bearing your soul is a sign of confidence, that if you share everything, your dreams, your trauma, your desires, you'll be loved more deeply. But often, the opposite happens. The more you give away, the more predictable you become. The more accessible you are, the less they chase. Mystery fades, and with it, intrigue. They begin to assume they've already figured you out, that there's no deeper layer, no hidden storm, no untamed fire beneath the calm surface. And once they believe they fully understand you, they stop wondering about you. They stop imagining you. That's when desire begins to die, because desire thrives in mystery, in curiosity, in the questions left unanswered. The second rise. Mystery is the language of power. A high-value man is not an open book. He's a locked journal, the kind you want to read, but can't unless you earn the key. He doesn't overshare. He speaks with intention, not impulse. He listens more than he speaks. And when he speaks, his words have weight. He allows people to wonder. He lets silence hang after a question. He doesn't explain his absence. He doesn't reveal the full story. He gives just enough to spark interest, but never enough to satisfy it completely. This creates an invisible pull, a psychological grip that draws others toward him, not out of obligation, but out of fascination. Because people don't crave answers. They crave tension. They crave the unknown. And he gives them exactly that. Conclusion: the man who isn't fully known. Mystery is not manipulation. It's discipline. It's knowing that not everything must be said. That silence can speak louder than explanation. That being hard to read doesn't make you distant. It makes you unforgettable. When she can't quite define you, can't predict your next move, can't fully grasp what drives you, she becomes consumed by the unknown. She imagines, she questions, she fills in the blanks. And in doing so, she forms a version of you that's larger than life. Because the man who holds back, who preserves his inner world, who leaves room for discovery, is the man who stays in her mind long after others have faded. He is not just remembered, he is mythologized. Chapter 7. He stays calm under pressure. He owns his emotional state. Chaos reveals what calm conceals. And most men, when the storm hits, lose themselves in it. They panic, react, blame, break. But the Stoic man? He becomes quieter, not because he feels less, but because he has mastered himself. First fall, the weakness of emotional reactivity. The average man is a slave to his emotions. He confuses feeling with action, anger with power, sadness with weakness. He believes that expressing every emotion without filter makes him authentic. But this lack of control is not authenticity, it's volatility. She tests him. Life tests him. And each time, he breaks the same way, raises his voice, sends the desperate text, says what he shouldn't, regrets it all later. In a moment of weakness, he reveals everything: his insecurities, his doubts, his emotional immaturity, and the worst part? Once she sees that, she can't unsee it. Because when a man can't hold himself together under pressure, no one trusts him to hold anything else, especially a woman's heart. Second rise, stillness, is a form of dominance. The high-value man is a fortress. When everything outside him shakes, he doesn't. When he's insulted, he doesn't flinch. When he's abandoned, he doesn't chase. When the door closes, he doesn't beg to reopen it. He rebuilds. His strength is not in how loud he roars, but in how deeply he breathes through chaos. He understands that emotion is natural, but reaction is a choice. And his greatest power is the ability to pause, observe, and respond only when it serves him. This is not apathy, it's control. When she tries to provoke a response, and he gives her silence, instead, he wins the moment. When life hits hard, and he chooses clarity over collapse, he becomes unshakable. Women, even if they don't say it, crave this. A man who is emotionally sovereign, who doesn't project, doesn't blame, doesn't collapse under pressure, but remains composed no matter what. Because that kind of man makes her feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally. Conclusion. The calm becomes the storm. Stillness doesn't mean he lacks emotion. It means emotion doesn't own him. He cries in silence. He rages without violence. He hurts without destruction. And because of this, when he speaks, people listen. When he moves, people follow. When he walks away, people feel the void. He becomes a rare force in a world full of reactionary noise. He doesn't need to prove his strength. His silence already speaks of it. His calm presence does what chaos never could. It commands attention. Without asking for it. He is not the storm. He is what remains after it. Chapter 8. He doesn't beg for attention. He attracts it effortlessly. Loudest man in the room is rarely the most powerful. He shouts, brags, postures, hoping anyone will see his worth. But what he doesn't understand is that real value never chases attention. It pulls it in without effort, without noise. First fall. The hunger for validation. You can feel it when a man is desperate for eyes on him. He performs rather than lives. He's not focused on becoming someone of substance. He's focused on appearing to be. Social media becomes a mirror he begs for approval from. Conversations turn into competitions. And relationships? They're not built on depth, but on the illusion of importance. And yet, the more he demands to be seen, the more invisible he becomes. Especially to her. Women sense it. The neediness hidden under the jokes. The thirst behind the compliments. The emptiness behind the flex. She sees a man trying to be wanted. But what she desires is a man who doesn't need to be. Because when a man seeks constant attention, it signals one thing: he doesn't believe he's enough without it. And nothing is more unattractive in that. Second rise. The gravity of a man at peace. The Stoic man flips the script. He doesn't chase the spotlight, he becomes the light. Not through noise, but through quiet consistency. Not through performance, but through presence. His value doesn't come from how many people see him. It comes from what he's building when no one is watching. He cultivates his mind, sharpens his body, deepens his soul, not to be seen, but to be. And because of that, people notice him without him ever asking. He becomes the kind of man who walks into a room and changes the energy, not because he demands it, but because he doesn't need it. That's magnetism. That's power. A man who moves with purpose, who speaks with precision, who listens more than he talks, stands out in a world of noise. Women lean in, not because he's begging for attention, but because he doesn't care for it. His focus is elsewhere on mission, mastery, meaning. And ironically, that makes him unforgettable. Conclusion. From spotlight to shadow, he could take the stage, but he prefers the shadows. Not because he fears visibility, but because he understands this truth. The more a man needs attention, the less he's done the inner work that would make him truly captivating. He is not here to impress. He is here to evolve. And that evolution makes him glow from within. So when they wonder why they can't stop looking at him, thinking about him, missing him, it's not because he tried to be seen. It's because he was already full before they ever looked. Chapter 9. He leads with action, not with promises. In a world where words are cheap and easily thrown, most men rely on promises to mask their lack of discipline. I'll change. I'll build something big. I'll be better. But you soon learn, especially in love and leadership, that the man who talks too much rarely does enough. First, the illusion of words. She's heard it before. The vows of transformation, the declarations of ambition, the romantic speeches, carved from insecurity rather than truth. Words meant to bind her heart, not build a future. She's been promised the world by men who couldn't even rule their own moods. So now, when a man says he'll show up, she waits not for the words, but for the silence that follows. Because it's there in the space between what he says and what he does, where his real character is revealed. And most men are empty in that space. They crumble when it's time to act. They delay, excuse, postpone. They let their emotions drive them. Their comfort define them, and their lack of discipline betray them. To her, these men become forgettable. Not because they lack potential, but because they've wasted it with talk. And nothing is more forgettable than a man who constantly promises and never delivers. Second rise, the Stoic in motion. The high-value man doesn't promise change. Is the change. He speaks little, but moves deliberately. He knows that action is louder than intention, and consistency more powerful than charm. He makes no announcement of who he is. He proves it in every choice. Every morning he rises early. Every moment he controls his temper. Every goal he chases in silence. To him, honor is not a word. It's a standard. He leads with action not because it's impressive, but because it's necessary. He doesn't seek to convince her or anyone of his worth. He simply lives in such a way that she can't deny it. He becomes a man of consequence. A man whose presence changes rooms, whose absence is noticed, whose discipline builds legacies. And when she sees him like this, not chasing, not explaining, not trying, she finally believes. Not because he told her who he is, but because he showed her. Conclusion. The legacy of action. The Stoic doesn't overpromise. He understands that real power doesn't announce itself. It arrives. It acts. It lasts. And that's what sets him apart. While others fall in love with the sound of their own potential, he falls in love with the process. He leads with action, not as a performance, but as a principle. And that's the kind of man she remembers long after the rest fade away. Chapter 10. He makes peace with solitude and never settles out of loneliness. Loneliness can be a cruel master. It whispers that any company is better than none. That desperation is love. That settling is survival. But a man of high value sees solitude differently. First of all, the trap of settling. Many men rush into relationships, not because they found the right person, but because they fear being alone. They tolerate disrespect, accept less than they deserve, and silence their own needs. This fear-driven settling breeds resentment and dissatisfaction. The relationship becomes a prison, not a partnership. She senses it. The desperation beneath the smile, the hesitation behind the touch. And no woman wants to be someone's cure for loneliness. Settling out of fear is not strength. It's surrender. Second rise, The strength of solitude. A Stoic man embraces solitude as a tool for growth, not a punishment. He understands that peace within himself is the foundation for any meaningful connection. He's complete alone, so he doesn't seek completion in others. This independence frees him from desperation and neediness. He waits for the right partnership, not the convenient one, because he values quality over quantity. He knows that true companionship is born from two whole individuals choosing each other, not two halves clinging in fear. Conclusion: the freedom to choose. When a man makes peace with solitude, he transforms loneliness into power. He becomes immune to the pressure to conform, to settle, to diminish his standards. That calm self-sufficiency radiates magnetism. It tells the world, I am enough. I deserve the best. And in that quiet confidence, he becomes irresistible. She won't just want to be with him, she wants to be worthy of him. You've just discovered the 10 core traits that define a high-value man from a Stoic perspective. These are not tricks or superficial tactics. They are principles rooted in timeless wisdom and daily discipline. Becoming this man is a journey. It requires patience, self-awareness, and the courage to face yourself honestly. But the reward is undeniable: respect, attraction, and a life lived on your own terms. If you're ready to take the next step, start by embracing just one of these traits today. Remember, small, consistent actions create unstoppable momentum. If this video helped you see the path clearer, show your commitment by liking the video, subscribing to Stoic Alchemist, and activating the notification bell. Join a community dedicated to growth, mastery, and real power. Share your thoughts below. Which trait resonated with you most? Write, I am a high-value man, to affirm your commitment and inspire others walking this path. For deeper wisdom and practical guidance, don't miss the next videos here on Stoic Alchemist. Remember, true value is not shouted, it's lived. Until next time.